Hi.
Hey Sam, how are you today?
I'm pretty okay. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I like your shoes.
Oh, thank you. They were a gift from my mom for Christmas a couple years ago.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah, they're really awesome.
I was gonna say they're very Christmassy.
Yeah, they have like little trees, and then my mom has the same ones. So
Cute. Are you close with your mom?
yeah, she's pretty cool lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say pretty close.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So what brings you in today?
Well, the past, I guess, week, I would say, I've just come to like a realization in my life that I don't really feel like I'm a valued person, and like I just realized that I don't really think that other people see me as valuable, and I can like logically see that.
All right.
You know, like logically, I can look at myself and go, obviously, I have value. I'm made in the image of God, and I can see that like my friends love me and people love me, and I've never really struggled with the idea of people like loving me.
Yeah.
Like, love makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But then I'm having a really hard time seeing that I actually have any value in people's lives. Like the feeling of being valued, and like wow,
Okay.
I feel none of that. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, tell me more about that. What does love look like in your life?
I guess love would be just like. Could you rephrase the question maybe?
Yeah, of course. So you're talking about you're having a hard time understanding what love and value look. You have a good way of understanding what love looks like in your life, right? But understanding how you have value in someone's life is very difficult for you, right? So what in your life shows that people love you or you love people? How do you show that?
Okay, that makes sense. I think the biggest thing I would say is like I can tell, and I know that, and I feel that people love me because I feel like someone loving. The love is very obvious to me. It's very. I can just see like, oh, like I'm really close to this person. We talk a lot or whatever. Like I know that they love me because they care about my life and things like that. Or like specifically with my dad, I can see that like the past couple of years, I'm like, oh, I can really tell that my dad loves me because of the effort that he makes, and he does a lot of things for me. He just makes it very clear that he wants to be a part of my life. Things like that, where I'm like, okay, I can see that these people love me, and like that's really obvious to me. Or like even showing love to people, like I know I love my friends so much, and I love people around me so much, and I have no issue thinking about like how much they mean to me in the sense of like I love them so dearly. But it's just really hard to equate the love and the value together. Like they're just two very separate things to me. Where I'm like, oh yeah, I know this person loves me. Like I know my dad. Well, it's different with my dad, but I know like my one good friend say. One of my good friends from school, like I know she loves me, right? But then feeling like she values me, I'm like, well, I don't really feel that, because it doesn't feel obvious. Like I don't think I can see it.
Okay. So love and value, logically, are two almost one and the same things, but you can't feel that.
Yeah, it's like I know that they could be the same. But they do not feel the same at all. Like when I feel valued, it's a different feeling than feeling loved.
Okay.
So like I know that I'm loved because I can tell from like things people have done, or like just like people being part of life. But the actual feeling of feeling valued, I'm like specifically the past week I've just recognized, wow, like I actually don't feel like this at all. Like I can't pinpoint a time recently where I felt truly valued by my friends mostly. I think like because with my dad, for example, I know that he loves me. I can see that he loves me, but I also feel valued by him because like he just makes this big effort, and I know how much he loves me. Like I just he's my dad. He's made that very obvious. So I see the love so clearly from him, and then he doesn't just like say things. He was like so willing to do things. Like actions, right? Like he'll like he took my car and took it to the shop and got some stuff dealt with that I was like really frustrated with because it was just a messy situation, and he just did it for me and then brought my car up to me, and I was like, wow, like I can feel how important I am to him, and I know he's willing to like do this for me, and I already know that he loves me, and this feeling is like, wow, he values me like being like well, like I'm not being stressed. He values me living a good life. And like that's how that felt. So in that area, I can say, like, yeah, I can look back and I say, I feel valued in that area. But then I look at the rest of everything else, and I'm like, I can't really pinpoint a time. I can pinpoint lots of times where it's like, oh, I felt loved by my friends, right? They love me. But to pinpoint a time where I actually felt valued,
right.
I'm like, I can't think of anything. So that's been very, like,
interesting.
I guess just a little saddening to realize. I also think because I feel like it's partly my own fault, just of like, for so long of my life, I was like, oh, you know, people say that they something nice about me or to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice, like, thanks for saying that, but it just feels uncomfortable, like I don't feel, it doesn't, I don't receive it well, I don't think, and then because of that, I don't really know how to, like, reciprocate all the time. Sometimes if I have, like, a very, very obvious thing, then I can reciprocate, but a lot of the times I'm like, they gave me this, like, say something nice to me, and I'm just like, thanks, that's great, like, that's so nice of you to say, but it's just kind of like, I guess I just don't, like, really feel it, because it just feels uncomfortable, and then, what am I leading to there? There was something really important.
That's all good.
Feeling the value, and it makes me feel good. Oh, right, because then I pushed it away, so I like, told people, like, words of affirmation just aren't, like, not how I feel loved, and that's okay, like, I don't need that, and, like, because I didn't recognize not feeling valued, saying, like, oh, I don't need words of affirmation so much, like, it's not how I feel loved, not a big deal, it really wasn't a big deal to me, because I was like, they just make me feel weird, and they're not a big deal, I'd rather someone, like, show me that they love me through, like, actions, and so I think, like, I pushed all that away, and then everyone, like, saw me as someone who, like, maybe didn't need that, or, like, didn't need words, and didn't need to have the little things that other people do for each other to feel valued. Like, I think I kind of, like, put myself out there as someone who doesn't need that. So then everyone took that, and in respecting that, they just don't really say much, or do, like, do much. People do a lot for me. Like, I don't, you know, I recognize people do a lot for me. It's not that people don't. It's just that it never really feels like the value. It feels like, oh yeah, they love me, so they do this thing. But then I'm like, in a group of people, I'm like, wow, I don't know. I don't really feel like I have much value in this situation.
Yeah. Okay. So you were talking about how words of affirmation specifically is something that you pushed away for a really long time, because that's how other people feel valued, but that always made you feel uncomfortable. And so why, like, what about words of affirmation, or, like, people complimenting you, or seeing something in you that they value or love or appreciate, what about that, because there are a lot of things that are very valuable, very appreciative, very loving, like, lovable about you. So what about those words makes you so uncomfortable?
Well, I think a lot of me equated, like, oh, if someone compliments my appearance, I'm like, oh, that's so nice of you, thank you, and that's great. Like, but, you know, that's surface level, there's not a lot more to it. It's just like, oh, that's really nice, and that's not uncomfortable. It's just like, oh, that's cool, move on. If someone compliments, like, something that I do, or, like, they tell me I'm really good at doing something, I think my brain equates that with, oh crap, like, I'm being showy, I'm being prideful, I'm like, trying to, like, show these people I'm good at this thing, and obviously that's not what I'm trying to do, but I think just so quickly my brain goes to, crap, you were prideful, because they saw it, you know, like, they recognized it in you, so shoot, that's not a good thing. And then I think my brain just immediately equates, someone recognizing something in me, where I'm like, darn it, I don't want people to see good things in me, because if they see good things in me, they're gonna, like, tell me, and then, dang it, I've done something wrong, you know? Like, it's not that it makes me feel prideful and good about it, like, it just makes me feel like, oh crap, they saw it, dang it, I must have been prideful.
Okay, tell me more about that. Why is that the immediate response?
I don't know. I think I was always really afraid of being prideful, so maybe it comes from, like, a fear of that, but I can't say that with full confidence.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay, circling back, so we've kind of talked about the show, or like people understanding or realizing or seeing something of you that is good. That's automatically prideful in your head, right?
Yeah, it's just like, it just goes to, because they saw it, it means I was showing it off.
Okay.
That's how it feels. Even though I know I literally was just doing something to because I need to do it, or because I was in charge of doing this thing, or whatever.
Okay. There seems to be a lot of disconnect between what you know versus what you feel.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that something that you've wrestled with a lot? Is that something that's been a continuous kind of thing that you've struggled with?
Yeah, I definitely would say I've always had a really hard time articulating how I feel. Mm-hmm. So, like, I can logically understand a lot of situations or things that happen, and then I'm like, oh, I feel something, but I don't know what it is. Okay. So it, like, for example, I'm like realizing I didn't feel valued. Okay. It was this realization of like, oh, I actually don't see value in myself, and then because of that, I'm like, okay, I'm like, oh, I don't see other people valuing me, because oh yes, the realization was because I would like be in like situations with like groups of people, for example, and then I would just like feel off, and I'd recognize, oh, I feel off, like something feels weird here, but I couldn't figure out what it was, so I didn't really worry about it, I didn't really think about it. I was just like, oh, I've just always been like this, like sometimes people are just too much for me, or I just get anxious or whatever it is, and I just equated it with that, like a passing feeling, and it wasn't a big deal. So I would just realize it and then move on, because it's like no reason for it, so it must not matter. And then when I realized, I was like, oh, like I feel so off in these situations or in these moments because I'm recognizing and feeling how I don't feel valued. I just didn't recognize that for what it was, right? Now I know. I'm like, oh, all those times I felt uncomfortable or felt out of place or just felt like a little weird in that moment was because I was like, I don't really feel like I have any value here, even if it's with people I love so much and I know love me, like even my closest friends.
So so we understand that they love us, but logically you know then that there must be a value there somewhere.
Logically.
Okay, but you don't feel that way.
No.
What could your friends do to, how do I word this? How could your friends show that to you?
See, on that side, I'm not sure. Okay. Because I'm like, logically, again, if I can understand that someone showing me something is them loving me, but then them showing me that same thing could also be them valuing me. Like, I can understand how you could put that thing in either box. Like, it could be love or value.
Okay.
But in my brain, like, it's love every time.
Right.
It's not value. It's love.
Okay.
And I know that they love me, and this is what love feels like to me. Whereas, like, the second it's, like, someone valuing something about me, it feels uncomfortable. So, like, I don't like this here, so I want it in the other place. I want it in the love box because that's okay. But this just feels uncomfortable, and I don't like it.
All right.
Even though I know it's a good thing.
Right. So there's a battle, almost, of I want to feel valued, I want to feel like people value me, but I actually just don't know how to accept that value. Okay. So I want to talk about, so let's look at love and value. Right, because logically we know that these two things need to go hand in hand. Because in order to love someone, they have to have value. And someone to have value, you have to love them. Right? If I value someone, it means I love them. Right? Or if I love someone, it means I value them. Right? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think I just struggle with like defining it like that. Like, because my brain just doesn't. I can, again, logically I can connect them, but I'm like, but that doesn't feel right. So like I can see like, oh, if I love someone, obviously I value them. But like I'm like, oh, I can value something, and like I have love for this person because you know I'm I love Christ, so I love all people regardless of disputes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, like you can value something and like really not like it.
Okay.
You know, like you can, like I can love someone and just so not get along with them, and that's okay. Like I don't have any disdain for them, but I'm like, that's great from a distance, and it just feels like this, like it feels just they don't feel like they always have to go hand in hand.
Okay.
Even though I think I know deep down logically that they do.
Okay. So you brought up liking someone versus loving someone. So to you, what is liking someone and loving them? What does that look like comparative to, oh, I love them, but I don't like them very much? Because you kind of stated something along those lines.
I think it's mostly just like, you know, like I genuinely feel a love for all people because I'm like, I know everyone's made in the image of God and it's beautiful. Yeah. And so like, even if your personality like bothers me, I'm like, I genuinely do love you, but I don't like being in a room with you. Like it makes me uncomfortable sometimes, right? Whereas with people that I like love and enjoy being around and really like, I'm like, I love you so much. I love everything about you, and also I enjoy your presence and being with you and like all that stuff.
Right. You value their presence and being with them. Yeah. Do you think there could be a way in which we are almost allowing for liking someone and valuing someone to be on equal playing field? Because that's what it sounds like. Because it sounds like you understand love and you know what love is. But then you brought up, well, I can love someone and not like them. And you almost spoke of liking as if you're valuing someone. So I wonder if there's something under there in the idea of, okay, well, in order to be valued, you have to be liked. Not just loved.
Maybe, but then it's weird because I'm like, but this also happens with my closest friends, where I know they like me. Like I know they like me as a person because like we spend a lot of time together. So, I think that's probably part of it. Just with like most people, like say I'm at school with like lots of people that I know, but not super well. Then that's probably like the connection there. Like I feel like that would make a lot of sense. Where I'm like, oh, well, I don't feel valued by them because I have no idea whether they like me or not. But then it's weird because I'm like, but even with my closest friends, I'm like, I know that they love me and I know that they like me because we spend a lot of time together. We do these things, like we talk about everything, whatever. But then even with all of that, I'm like, but I just don't feel valued, you know. And it's like, and I feel like it's like kind of my fault because I pushed it away for so long. So like I'm like, well, how would they even know to do that, right? Like I've made it, I feel like I've like shown myself as a person who just doesn't need that kind of stuff. Like I've even like said it, right? Where so people are just literally respecting what I've said or just going about living life how they think is actually good because that's what they know. So I'm like, well then it's not their fault. It's completely on me. Like I've literally created this version of myself that doesn't need this and doesn't feel like I deserve it. So that's what people see and feel, you know? Because like people can also like kind of like feel how, just feel out, not like, I don't want to say the vibe of who we are, but
it's okay
if that makes sense. Like, you know, kind of just who we are as a person. So then people just don't do that for me. It's like I'll be in like situations in big groups where I'm like, wow, like people very clearly value each other so much, or just even like so much more than I do. So even if there is a little bit of value I can feel and see, I'm like, and that's awesome, that's so great, and I'm so appreciative of that. I'm like, wow, but they also love and value that person or everybody else so much more. And I'm kind of just like this like other person that's like, I don't know what to do here. Like I don't know how to. Well, one, I don't know how to ask for it because it feels like a stupid thing to ask for. I know it's not, but it just feels like, can you value me? Like that, even that thought makes me sick. I don't like it.
Why?
Makes me feel weird. Because it's just like, I don't know. I actually couldn't tell you why. The thought of like saying that makes me feel like, it makes me tense. Like my whole body actually tense. So if someone were to ask me, like, how can I value you? I would probably feel so cornered and so uncomfortable that it wouldn't help anything. It would actually just make me feel worse.
All right.
So it's just like, yeah, it's just this weird thing where I'm like, I built up this thing about me, so people just don't do it for me because they don't think I need it. And then now I'm realizing, and before, I didn't think I did. I thought I was fine, and sometimes I just felt off because I felt off. Now I'm realizing, okay, I actually really do need all this stuff that other people do for each other and say to each other and just exist with each other like this. But I don't know how to go about changing that or doing anything about it because I'm just like, well, it's like I dug my grave and now I'm sitting in it, is what it feels like.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a lot to unpack there. So there's a lot of, all right, so correct me if I'm wrong. So you see and you realize that people, in some regard, you feel as though they do value you, but everyone else around you seems to have more value or have been given more value or have been kind of, when you're in a circle of people, in a group of people, you can recognize that people are valuing you, but when you look at the relationships between other people, it feels as though there's more value there.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And like, again, like I said, like it's really hard for me to pinpoint a time where I actually ever did feel value.
And that's okay.
So like, I don't know if there's very many examples of that where I did feel value, but mostly, just like, wow, like, oh, that she so clearly loves her so much and values her so much,
right,
and like values her time and being around her and like all this stuff. I'm like, and I don't think I could like pinpoint a moment or an example or anything that's happened where I received that, but also where I even like gave a lot of that. You know, like I feel like I give a lot of love to my friends and a lot of love to people, but then like if someone were to say something where they like are valuing something about me, it makes me feel weird to say something back to them. But I think it's just the same concept in my mind where I'm like, if they say it to me, it's because I was being prideful. So if I say it to them, I'm affirming their pride, which is not even true at all. Like I know that, but then it's just like it's this two-way street of like, everybody else is be able to give and receive this because they don't have, they see it rightly. Whereas I'm like, I'm not able to receive this and I'm not able to give it because it just doesn't, it feels wrong.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so you're feeling as though there is want, but are not able to understand how to articulate that want because asking for something along those lines is scary, basically, or uncomfortable.
Yeah, more uncomfortable. I wouldn't say scary. It doesn't feel scary. It just feels, well, it feels more wrong than anything.
Okay.
It doesn't feel right to me. It feels like, even that feels like I'm being like, I deserve this thing. It feels like I'm asking for something that I don't deserve.
Tell me more.
I guess I don't know if I have any more to actually say about that in this moment.
That's okay. I want to circle back to seeing how people love each other and seeing how people value each other. What is the difference there? When you see someone, let's say you have two close friends, or in a conversation, how can you, where do you organize love versus value in a conversation like that?
Honestly, I think it's just what my brain decides as which, and usually I can just, with other people, I'm able to recognize both, or like the difference between it for them, where I'm like, oh, like that person is like telling them, like maybe showing them that they love them, but then also affirming that with words, like saying that, like, why. So like the action and the words are matching up. Like they're being shown love and value because the words and the actions are matching up. Like there's a whole complete image of why it's true. Maybe.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you think as though, or you feel as though, value versus love, value is saying something and then acting on it.
Maybe.
So if I were to show you that I loved you and I just said I love you, that would just be, or immediately you would put that into the love box. But if I were to say, Sam, I love you, and then I wiped off your car for you and started it for you, then you would see, oh, she values me.
See, and that's weird because I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I even hear that and I look at myself and I'm like, if you tell me you love me, well, first of all, if there's only words, I have a really hard time. I'm like, words can mean anything. Because I've had a lot of people in my life say a lot of stuff and then never follow through.
Okay.
So someone saying something to me, like, obviously it means a lot because I know on their side, like, they intend it for so much good.
Yeah.
But I receive it as, like, I'm like, you can say anything you want. Like, you can say anything you want to anybody. But at the end of the day, if there's no proof of the words, then do the words actually do anything? So it's really hard for me to recognize the value and importance of words because I'm like, even if I trust you down to my core, I'm like, but if nobody shows it, then it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because then it's not true. You know, words that are disconnected from actions are so, like, that's awesome. Words are great. They might feel good in the moment, but they don't, like, do anything. They don't go anywhere. Whereas, like, an action, like, actually shows that. And then, yeah, so if, like, someone said that, and I would see that as loving, it would still be like, okay, I think you love me. And then if they show me the thing, I'm like, okay, yeah, you do love me.
Okay.
So it's even, the value is not even part of it. It's like, I think you love me, and then, okay, yeah, you do really love me. And not because I, like, people need to do things for me, but just the gesture and knowledge of someone caring enough about me to follow through. Maybe.
So in one way, it would be someone valuing you enough to follow through.
You could put it like that, I guess. It feels weird. It feels weird to put it that way, but it also, like, logically, I know that's true. You know? So it's like this weird disconnect where I'm like, oh yeah, like, that actually is, like, that form of love is showing someone value. And, like, I can say that, like, yeah, absolutely. That is logically true. But then, even in that, I'm like, but each individual thing is just so specific, right? Like, at least for me, for my brain, every little thing is so specific. So the example of the car, right? You tell me you love me, you wipe off my car. You're showing me that you value me because you're doing something for me. In that specific context, I'm like, well, but not really. Like, it's just like, wiping off my car, it's like, oh, I could have done that. Like, not, as much as I appreciate it so much, it's so, like, I don't know. It's just a weird it's a weird little mess of, I can logically know it, but it just, like, something about it still just feels so off. I'm like, well, yeah, but it is just love. It's love, and not just love. Like, love is a really big deal, right? But I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult. It takes a lot of courage to be able to sit there and say, I actually don't understand. And so take that and know that, and don't take that as pride, but just to sit and say, okay, like, it does take courage and intelligence to be able to understand something like that, and to be able to recognize that you're struggling with something like that. I think the first step of understanding would be looking and saying, okay, how can love and value overlap? In my head, I'm thinking of this like a Venn diagram. Have you seen a Venn diagram before? Something like that, where there's value on this side, there's love on this side, and there's a middle ground. And the more that you understand how the two can overlap, the more that, like, the circles begin to come into each other and form the same thing. Because truly, to love someone is to value them, and to value someone is to love them. Right? Inherently, as humans who are created in God's image, we know that everybody has a certain set of value, regardless of who you are. And therefore, when someone loves you, they value you, because they value your time, and they take time to love you, regardless of whether or not you're liked or not, which you are. So I think it comes down to being able to see, okay, maybe the step is, how can I allow myself to be valued today? Because it seems as though you don't want to allow yourself to do such a thing, because that would almost allowing for pride to get in, because, oh, you can't be too valuable, don't be too valuable. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. I don't know. It makes sense logically again,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Because I'm recognizing that it's something that I really deeply desire. It doesn't really feel like I'm like, oh, I'm not allowing myself to do this.
Okay.
It feels like I don't know how.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because it's just been so long.
Yeah.
So long that I've been subconsciously doing it, and then now that I'm realizing, I'm like, wow, like it's been so long that I've been like doing this to myself, not on purpose, but like truly, like I've been doing it to myself for years. Where I'm like, I literally have no idea how to go about changing that or do anything about it, and like I said, like if someone were to come up to me and like if I talked about this and then someone came up to me and were like, I really value you, I'd be like, shut up. Like it would feel so ungenuine. It would feel so fake because if I say it and I ask for something like value, if someone like just does that, I'm like, you're just doing it because I said it, and then they just use I value you. Thanks, that's awesome. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, you can say that all day long. It doesn't really do that much.
Right. So then what would it look like for someone to value you?
I honestly have a really hard time knowing, because the only example that I can think of is like with my dad, where it's my parent. So like I know how much he loves me and deeply he loves me because he's my dad, and then I see the value because all the things he does feels like it's on top of the love he already has for me because he's my dad, you know? So I'm like, oh, him like just taking my car and like doing all this stuff that would just help me not be stressed. Like I could do all those things if I had to, but it would just kind of be kind of sucky. And because he was like, oh, I want to help you with this and take this off your plate, and just really like, I don't know, like, the only words I can think of is like, just do this thing for me, right? I can see that he just values my well-being. That's what I can see. That's the only example that I can think of. And then I'm like, with my friends and stuff, I'm like, I don't know how. I'm not sure how to go about, like shifting that, because I think now like it's something I want to talk about, but then also I don't know how, because like I just don't, it's been so long, I'm like, I don't know how to even have that conversation. Yeah,
that's a hard conversation to have, because it can feel intimidating almost.
And I don't want my friends to think that they like have been crappy friends, because I have wonderful friends, but it's just like as much as I know all these people love me so dearly and are willing to just like help me in anything that I did need, I'm like, but I just don't feel valued at all. Like to say that feels like an attack on somebody else. To say like, I don't feel valued by you, even though you're showing me all this love. Like I'm like, people already do so much for me. Like to say something more, like that sounds crazy to me, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it can be very difficult. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, there's a lot to unwind in something like that. And it doesn't just happen overnight. So don't be discouraged if nothing changes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen, for your time.
Thank you for having me.